All right, welcome into another edition of Carps Corner, and this will be the post-national championship out in Los Angeles edition of the show. Went out there for a couple of days, Friday to Tuesday, did some stuff with the podcast, and working on some big plans, some new stuff in the coming year, maybe potentially for Carps Corner, and maybe some collaboration and different things, working through some stuff. But this is it's pretty exciting. What potentially um, might be going down this year. But went out there, couldn't even stay for the game. Did the pregame show with SiriusXM. I could not bring myself to stay for the game and to watch that because in my heart of hearts, I probably knew that that's how the TCU offense and defense would probably fare against Georgia. If TCU played Georgia 10 times, maybe TCU wins one, maybe two or three of them look like they did on Monday night, and probably the other 6 or 7 of them, maybe 10 to 14 points, probably more 14 to 24 points in the margins. And what happened to TCU is they got steamrolled. They got snowballed to where when you make some mistakes, they start compounding on top of you, and they couldn't get out of their own way. You thought when they scored the touchdown, I think it was 21-7, maybe they'd be able to muster a little more offense and keep that thing within 3 scores. Couldn't do it. Couldn't do that. A lot of injuries, things mounted. Georgia was getting after him. And the reality was, you looked at that Georgia defensive line and what they were able to do to Max Duggan. I give Ohio State's offensive line all the credit in the world. Ryan Day, Justin Fry, for what they were able to do and finding a way to block that front up for Georgia. Because Georgia had done that to people all year. They'd done it to people all year, and they did it once again. If you look at CJ, yeah, he was sacked a handful of times, but they were able to rush the ball for over 150 yards. They were able to pass the ball whenever they wanted. And CJ really had a pretty clean pocket most of the night. Yeah, there were times where potentially there were going to be some issues and that they were going to get pressure on CJ. But CJ did a good job avoiding it. And for the most part, the offensive line held up really well. And so I think that's a testament to Ohio State and what they're able to do. If you're going to beat Georgia, this is and teams like that when they have great defenses and offenses that can score points. Methodology is simple. You're going to have to probably have your quarterback rush for 3 or 4, maybe 5 first downs. You're going to have a handful of explosive plays, probably 6 to 8, maybe 10. You're going to have to win the turnover margin, probably not turn the ball over. And on top of that, offensively, you're going to have to score some from outside of the 30-yard line. Ohio State did all of those things offensively, and that's why they had a chance to win. So unfortunately, didn't happen. That could have been Ohio State there. That could have been them playing TCU. And I don't know if it looks exactly the same, as that was the largest margin of victory ever in a bowl game. But I think that there are probably some similarities in that game with Ohio State and their ability to score the football. So it was hard to watch because TCU just ran out of gas, and Georgia really did whatever they wanted. I mean, Brock Bowers had a huge day. Did not have a big day against Ohio State. Stetson Bennett was running all over the place. I mean, when you score 65 points, there's enough to kind of sprinkle all around, and everybody's able to have success. And TCU provided minimal resistance on defense, and offensively couldn't get anything going. And so you look at CJ Stroud, what he was able to do. I think there's a new respect there for him, and ultimately what he was able to bring to the table. So I want to just kind of touch on that and lament the fact that it felt like Ohio State, especially after watching that game, blew a remarkable opportunity to win a national championship, and they're second in the CFP. And unfortunately, could not get it done. But focused a lot on that offensive line because you have some guys leaving off of the offensive line, have some other guys coming back, and that's going to be big. And so you're going to have some experience at some places. We all kind of anticipated this. Paris Johnson, DeJuan Jones, the 2 tackles, the bookends. DeJuan came back last year. Thought, okay, get another year out of him, have him hone his skills a little bit more, see if he can improve his draft stock and all this. And those guys played pretty darn well against Georgia. Did a great job, I might add. Very, very impressive. So those guys were good. The whole offensive line was good, but you thought you were going to get back your 3 interior offensive linemen. And unfortunately, well, let's look to the positive first. Matt Jones is coming back. And so that's good. That's good. Matt Jones will be returning. So I throw this up there. I mentioned Paris Johnson. He's on his way out. We already knew all that. But the man in the middle, who still had eligibility remaining, throw this up here now. Luke Whippler is going to be leaving. And that's tough because breaking in a new quarterback, you thought you'd have your center there and you thought you'd have the 3-pack inside. And you thought that would be good. And you thought Fryer, you could plug him in at one of the other spots and he may just be replacing one guy. The problem is now you've got to replace a center and maybe you have some guys inside to do it, but Whippler's going to be a good player at the next level. I thought he maybe could have used another year of seasoning. I thought it may have helped him a little bit. You know, he reminds me a lot of Corey Linsley, body type, and even kind of personality. Heck, they even kind of look alike. But he reminded me a lot of him. I thought, okay, another year, you strap in, you saddle in, and you're going to have a really nice season. Maybe you'll win some awards. Maybe you'll win a national championship. But on top of that, you're going to be able to then go to the next level and maybe even get some practice at guard. And you play most of the time at center, but you flip over to guard a little bit. Allow Ohio State to break in a new center at times at different games. And then he gets some position flexibility inside. Thought that would be a good plan. Fortunately, it's not. So now you're going to be replacing 3 guys on the offensive line, 2 outside and your center man in the middle. I think you've probably got 3 that can play now. 4, it'll be a little bit of a tough, but you're going to probably have to get a guy out of the portal. And here's the thing for Ohio State. They have been striking out on portal guys, on tackles. And the reality is it all has to do with NIL. Those guys want upfront cash. They want to come in and they want guarantees. We can talk about how recruiting inducements shouldn't exist and this, that, and the other. The reality is it does everywhere. And it's happening now. And so Ohio State hasn't been able to land a guy. And if they could get a portal guy, you'd feel good. I thought there was a guy they might have been able to snag. And I couldn't believe, I get it, you get guys from different regions of the country, but it felt like this was a good fit and a good home. And some of these guys, especially when they're coming in, they've got 1 year, maybe 2 left. And maybe they're a fringe NFL guy, but a really good college player. Like, I need this. This is for my families to set me up moving forward in life. Okay. With a couple $100,000, I get it. I understand it. I mean, I like it, but I understand it. And I can't really complain all that much about it because it's what we've created. We've created this beast, and now we've got to feed it. So that's going to be the main issue. Can Ohio State snag a portal guy here? You want to do it before spring ball or in this winter portal. You don't want to try to do it after spring unless there's someone who's really stinking good that's going to be available because you don't want to feel like you have to wait that long. That could be trouble, and you could ultimately have issues. Now, so the good news. Steel Chambers announced a couple weeks ago he was coming back. A week and a half ago. Cade Stover apparently was maybe going to leave. He announced he's coming back. I'm not leaving. He's coming back. He tweaked his back, and maybe that had something to do with it. Guys get emotional after the season. You want to take some time away. Then the guy floating out there was Tommy Eichenberg. I'm thinking, man, if you can get Tommy Eichenberg back, you have most of this defensive line back. You have him and Steele back. You have a nice rotation with Cody Simon. You can start working C.J. Hickson. You got some good corners coming back. Denzel Burke's going to be back. Cam Brown is ultimately gone. Jordan Hancock's going to be back. You got Lathan Ransom back. I know he fell down, but you have those guys. I'm like, all right, so you got a safety coming in. There's a lot of versatility from Syracuse. So maybe you just need one safety to ultimately replace Ronnie Hickman. And I think defensively you're going to be okay because get this, Tommy Eichenberg is returning. He's going to be coming back, and I think that's pretty exciting for everybody. The fact that he's going to be coming back and he'll be around, and that should be pretty good. Because if you can get Tommy Eichenberg back and he decides that he's going to be here, which I'm pretty sure that's going to be the case, that defensive front is going to be solid. You'll be really stout on that side of the ball. It'll be the second year in this Jim Knowles scheme, which should be tremendous. And that's all you really need to have is another year with him. It eliminates some of those big plays. You've got the man there who's going to be able to diagnose everything, and that's going to be big. And so you've got him coming back. Now you look at the offensive side of the ball. Mayan Williams announced he's coming back, which is big. An Ohio guy you saw, obviously he was banged up in the Peach Bowl, but he was able to drive the Georgia front for 2 yards to ultimately get that score a touchdown there inside the 2, which is very, very tough. So getting chopped back, I'll always call him meatball, but getting chopped back, that's going to be big. I mentioned Matt Jones up front. And then Xavier Johnson coming back, huge depth piece because you saw some of the versatility and some of the things that he could do. So, you have Marvin back. You have a healthy, hopefully, Julian Fleming. You have a healthy Emeka Ibuka. You saw what he was able to do, who had a huge Peach Bowl, played really well, because he finally started getting healthy. So you have those three. You have Xavier. Plus, you have some of the young wide receivers that are coming through, and Heartline's developing all those guys. So you'll have some options. You're going to have some options there, the skill position. So you really got to find the quarterback, and you got to get the offensive line shirt up. Those are going to be the two big challenges that Ohio State's going to have to figure out and find answers to. So, which I lament, like I said, not make it to the final because, gosh, you make that kick and you go ahead, move on. You beat TCU, and it's a whole different story, a different tune. But I feel like Ohio State did regain some respect there. And we'll throw this up here because speaking of the wide receivers, this is pretty big. And this is why Heartline's recruiting at crazy levels. We put it up. Chris Olave, Garrett Wilson become the first pair of rookie receivers from the same school to each reach 1,000 yards in the same season. So 2 rookies from Ohio State, both balling out, doing a great job. I mean, I don't know if they're quite on pace for Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, but that's about as good as you're going to get considering those guys came out the same year and have been able to do that. And if you look at both of them, the Jets and the Saints, not the greatest quarterback play in the world. So kind of subpar quarterback play that you're dealing with out there. So not big stuff, obviously, that's going on. So that's kind of a huge deal for those guys to be able to do that. It's a huge recruiting tool for Brian Hartline. And that's why, NIL and all this stuff, like it may not be affecting him as much. You'll get some guys and obviously there'll be a price, but much better situation than potentially the alternative. Looking now at this, some of the way too early rankings, and I know the game just got over, but I think this is encouraging. As we throw this up, we'll start from the back end. Tennessee at 10, Oregon at 9, LSU at 8, USC at 7, and Penn State at 6. So USC's got Caleb Williams coming back. You're losing Hendon Hooker at Tennessee, but you've got a nice young quarterback coming in there. Oregon had a nice recruiting class. Jalen Daniels is coming back to LSU. And then Drew Aller is going to have to step up big for Penn State. But I like Penn State. What they were able to do, that was really important. And so you got your first Big Ten team you're seeing there at number 6, which is key. So hopefully you're thinking, okay, it's not Ohio State or Michigan. So this should be a pretty darn good way too early poll. And then we'll go to the next part, the top 5. Sitting there at 5, you start getting some of the usual suspects. You've got Bama sitting there at 5. Now you've got Florida at 4. I don't know if I can or Florida State. I don't know if I can get behind Florida State at 4 quite yet. They went 10-3. They had a good year. I understand they've got a good recruiting class. They've got some of their guys back. I get all that. I don't know if I can get behind it. Now, Blake Corum at 3 is coming back to Michigan, which is huge. That's big for Michigan to get him back. Then with Donovan Edwards, continue to grow with J.J. McCarthy there. We'll see what they're ultimately going to be able to do. And if Jim Harbaugh is even there to lead the charge. And then here you go. Probably, in my opinion, your top 2 teams this season. You've got Ohio State at 2 and Georgia at 1. And the reality is both those teams are going to be finding quarterbacks next year. And that's why you don't have their quarterbacks up on the cover screen, because Marvin's going to be the star of stars. And heck, if he plays like he did this year, he's going to garner some Heisman votes. And then Brock Bowers there for Georgia. So good for him, the Mackey Award winner. But I'd be blown away unless Marvin gets hurt. If he doesn't win Biletnikoff, unanimous All-American, and probably garner some Heisman voting. Because this dude, he might be the best receiver I've seen in Ohio State since Terry Glenn playing here, with what he's able to do to high points, to go get the ball, the big plays, everything. So that's kind of breaking down everything in the post-playoff world, what Ohio State needs to kind of get fixed. Already back in the weight room at it. Those guys are back grinding. So kudos to them. Big deal. For some of the guys that are coming back. Some of the guys that are leaving, you wish them the best because of everything they did for Ohio State. So that's a huge piece of it. So congratulations there. Exciting to see. And, it's going to be a big offseason. We're going to get into some of the issues with Ohio, with NIL, spring football, a lot of things, because Ohio reportedly cares about football. But if Ohio says they care about a football a lot, you've got to start showing people that you actually care about it. So some of the future episodes, we'll be diving into that, kind of breaking some of those things down as well. But we appreciate the time here. Please continue to subscribe, like, share, do everything you ultimately need to do. Appreciate all the support in this. Love your comments. Throw them up. I'll try to answer them the very best I can, either on the comment section or potentially I'll answer them here on air, as they'll provide some good content, some good starting points for conversation. So thank you for tuning in. Appreciate it again, and we'll talk to you here soon.